Greetings, I'm Ted Simpson. Well, as you may have heard, the captain has charged us with the task of creating a library storage system to collect information about the various locations that we'll be studying on our voyage. And we're planning to use a SAN, storage area network, to do this, because in this way data can be available to multiple host computers around the ship. The textbook you're using contains an activity that will help you get up to speed on this task. In this demonstration, I'll be walking through the steps of this activity, 4-3, in order to show you how to set up an iSCSI target service on a Windows 2016 virtual machine. Knowing how to do this will be important to earning your wings in the ship's IT department. Well, let's get started. To start with, in steps 1 and 2, we need to check the network adapter settings for our virtual machine. So I've opened up VMware Workstation 12 and clicked on my Windows Server 2016 virtual machine. And now in step 2 I go down to the network adapter and we're going to verify that it's set to NAT. Of course, for machines to be able to communicate with our target SCSI device, they'll have to be connected to the NAT network. In the real world, we typically would use a SAN or storage area network, possibly some fiber network that's dedicated to the iSCSI target. In this example, in this demonstration, we'll be using our NAT as that network. So once we've confirmed that NAT is set to our virtual machine, we can then power on the virtual machine. Once the virtual machine is powered on, we'll send a control delete sequence and then log in with our administrator password. To allow other machines to see this computer, so I'll click yes to the networks dialog box. Once we've logged in, we'll see our server manager screen. Now moving on to step 4, we're going to open a command prompt by clicking the start button, then entering in CMD. And once we get the command screen up, we're going to type in ipconfig so we can check the IP address of our system. We'll need to know that in order to configure the iSCSI target. In this case, our IP address for me is 192.168.81, so I'm on the 81 subnet, and the machine's address is 128. So then I want to record that information as shown there on step 4 so that I can use it in my next steps. After recording that information, I can close the command prompt window. At this point, in step 5, we want to set a fixed IP address of 101 for our server on the NAT subnet. So to do that, I'm going to open up the File Explorer, as mentioned there in step 5. We'll then right-click Network and click Properties. We'll then click the Change Adapter Settings option. Show us our adapters, in which case Ethernet 0 is the one I'm looking for. So I want to right-click that, click Properties again. Then we're going to go down to the TCP/IP4 address and click Properties. Notice it's set to obtain its IP address automatically. So in this case, I'm going to click Use the following IP address, and then I'll type in the IP address and subnet. Our subnet is 81, and the IP address that we want to use is 101. And it will default to the subnet mask 255.255.255, which should be what you recorded in step 4. I also want to set up the default gateway point. We can now click OK to change that address, close out of our property screen, and exit the File Explorer windows, bringing us back to our server manager window. In step 6, since our server manager is already started, I'm just going to go down and click the Add Roles and Features, and then in step 7 we'll click Next to begin the process. In step 8 it says to ensure that role-based or feature-based installation is selected, so we'll do that and click Next. Taking us to step 9, we want to select our server from the list. Notice that our server has the 192.68.81.101 address we assigned earlier, so I'll click Next to select that server. Moving down to step 10 then, we are to expand the file and storage services, and then also expand the file and iSCSI services. Then scroll down and click to select the iSCSI target as described in step 11. And at this point we want to make sure that the Include Management Tools is selected. And then we'll hit Add Features button. That moves us down to step 12. Here we'll select Next again. We want to make sure that our framework is selected here. So we'll click that. And once we've done that, we can go back here to see that our net framework is selected and the file and storage services iSCSI target is selected. And now in step 13 we can click Install to start the installation process. Once the installation is complete, we'll get a success message, and then we can click Close as described in step 14. That'll bring us back to the Server Manager main menu. Notice on the left side of the dashboard there are a number of options. In this case we want to click, as described in step 15, the File and Storage Services. Then, as described in step 16, on the left pane we'll hit the iSCSI option, and we see a little message there that says to create the iSCSI virtual disk. We want to click that link. In step 17 we are to click the option to type a custom path and then enter the custom path shown there. So I've typed in iSCSI, vDisco1 is shown, and then I will click Next, taking us to the step 18 where we're to specify an iSCSI virtual disk name and optional description. So as you can see, I've entered the name and I gave it a little description just saying this was a test of the iSCSI SAN storage. I'll now click Next, and that'll bring us to our disk size. It says we have 107 gigabytes free, so we'll put 100 gigabytes in at this time, and we're going to leave it as dynamically expanding so it won't actually take that space until it's needed. So then in step 19, after entering that information and checking for dynamically expanding, we'll click Next. In step 20, we want to verify that the new iSCSI target is selected, and then click Next. In step 21, we'll enter a name for this iSCSI target in the name field and an optional description. So I've entered my initials along with the iSCSI file cluster name and gave it a description of your choice. After doing that, we can hit Next as described in step 21. This will bring us to our Specify Access Servers page described in step 22. At this point, we're going to be adding servers that are going to be connecting with this iSCSI target. To do that, of course, we'd have to know what addresses we're going to be using for those servers. and we'll be using address 141 and 142 in a later activity. So at this point, in step 22 through 25, we're going to be setting up those servers in advance. So I'm going to click the Add button as described in step 22, and then we're going to go down and click the option as described in step 23 to enter a value. And then under the type here, we're going to use the IP address field. There's different ways you might identify the server, but for simplicity, we're just going to put the IP address in, and then we'll enter the IP address of the server. It's going to be on subnet 81, and we're going to be address 141, which will be the address of our first vSphere server that we'll be connecting in a later activity. We'll then click OK. Now we'll repeat that process to connect another IP address, and this is going to be another vSphere server, subnet 81, and then address 142. Clicking OK adds that server to the list. This brings us to the Enable Authentication page and step 26. In this case, we're going to use the CHAP or CHAP authentication protocol. So I'll click Enable CHAP as described, and then we need to enter a username and 12-character password. You can enter any username and password you like as long as you remember it. That's why it's important in step 26 to write down your username and password, and then click Next. To continue to our Confirm Selections page. Gives us a chance to kind of look back over our entries, make sure everything looks correct, and then we can go ahead and click the Create button, and this will create our virtual disk for iSCSI. Once that's completed, we can click Close to return back to the Server Manager screen. For example, let's say we want to go back and review our settings for the iSCSI target we just created. I'll click on iSCSI, then we can see the TLS iSCSI file cluster I created. Right-clicking that, we can click Properties. Here we can see the name and description. If I click on Initiators, I'll see the 2 IP addresses, and I could add additional IP addresses here if necessary, or change them. And here I see my security is set for CHAP. And I can look at any existing connections. Of course, there aren't any right now. So that brings us back to the Server Manager window, and we've now completed this activity. Okay, in summary then, during this demonstration, I performed the following steps. To start with, we checked to be sure that the virtual machine network adapter was set to the NAT setting. Next, we logged onto the server and then set a fixed IP address on the NAT network. We then used Server Manager to add the iSCSI target role to the Windows 2016 server, and during this process we added 2 IP addresses as initiators. These will be used in the future by vSphere host computers. After the iSCSI target installation was complete, I took a look at how you can use Server Manager to modify the existing iSCSI settings. Well, I hope you found this demonstration beneficial. And until next time, best wishes in your preparation for hyperconvergence.